Winchin Heron, Falcher over Fad and Chugga Cahalimni. As you know by now, we're halfway through the government's term of office, and so this evening I thought I might say a few words to you about the progress we have made, the challenges that remain, and where we want to take Ireland to the future. For our country, it's been a back-breaking time, but it had to be, because it was clear that only radical action could save us from total ruin. Only radical change could rescue us from the political and economic crisis that brought the Troika to our door. Banks on the brink, an economy in free fall, 250,000 jobs lost in 3 years, and across the world, Ireland's good name in tatters and our reputation in shreds. That was the situation in early 2011. But let me say to you, wherever you are watching or wherever you are listening, we are never going back to the culture of those times, never. Tonight I want to thank the people, because it's thanks to you and the sacrifices you made and the patience you've shown that Ireland at long last is on the road back to recovery and to work. Yes, our competitiveness has improved. We have 34,000 new jobs in the last year alone. We are on track to exit the bailout by the end of this year. It's just a start, but it is the progress that we've all been waiting for, and it is real progress. I know that many of you out there have yet to see the evidence of that progress in your day-to-day lives. You are living with lower salaries, with higher costs. You're worried about bills, about the rent, about the mortgage, about the children, about the elderly. But the economic evidence is now clear that your huge sacrifices are paying off. With the decisions that you, the people, worked with us as a government, our economy has started to grow and to strengthen. Yes, we still have a long way to go, but because of what you did at your end of the bargain, finally, there are better days ahead. And for our part in government, we started with repairing Ireland's international reputation. Taoiseach Eamon Gilmore and myself were very clear that being a new government was not enough. Our global partners and our investors had to see that we were a very different government, a serious government. And from the outset, we proved that in our financial decisions. And I can report to you, ladies and gentlemen, that Ireland's international reputation has now been fully restored. In January of this year, we assumed the presidency of the European Union. Consensus is that our presidency was a great success. The EU budget 2014 to 2020, the reforms of the common agricultural policy and the fisheries policies, the mandate for the EU-US trade talks, major progress on banking union were all negotiated and agreed by Ireland. Once again, we showed the world that when it comes to international relations and diplomacy, Ireland is very much a leader, right up there with the very best. And in our economy too, after some quite disastrous years, confidence is gradually being restored. Despite a really tough international environment, our economy has started to grow. Irish exports are at an historic high, worth over €180 billion. The interest rate on government bonds is down from 15% to less than 4%. And across the world, investors are looking and watching Ireland, and they like what they see. I know only too well that for years, for all of you at home who are watching our public finances, not alone with dread, but with absolute disbelief, you know you can't run your homes and your businesses by spending more than you take in. And you know that years of giveaway budgets gave away nothing but our economic security and the futures of our children. So our budgets were designed and focused to attract investment and to create jobs. Specifically, they focused on what was needed to give us back our financial security, our power to decide what kind of country we want to become. And I want to say that I know just how tough this has been on you, on your families, and on your businesses. But you can see now that your sacrifices are showing results, because since coming to office, we have exceeded all of our budgetary targets as we move towards manageable and normal budgeting by 2015. Next year, we will deliver a primary surplus in our budget, which means that finally we can start to reduce the burden of our national debt. Getting our people back to work is what drives every economic decision, and jobs are central to that. Yes, there are too many people still out of work. Yes, there are too many people still leaving the country. But you know something? There is a change happening. Job creation is now at its highest level in 5 years. The live register numbers have fallen for 15 consecutive months. That's progress. Before we came to office, this country was losing 7,000 jobs every month. Now we are creating, happily, 3,000 new jobs every month. That's a wage and hope. That represents wages and hope and dignity being returned to 3,000 families this month and every month. The IDA has enjoyed 2 record years, a net increase of 12,500 people in IDA-supported companies in 2011 and 2012. Crucially, the top international companies continue to choose Ireland for their locations, companies like Google, and PayPal, and IBM. Why is that? Their chief executives of these companies tell me it's because of our quite incredible workforce. In fact, Intel just announced to the world that the new Quark chip and the Galileo board had been designed and developed here in Ireland, which is a statement of real significance in a global sense. Not just made in Ireland, but designed in Ireland. And that's a huge endorsement of the creativity and the skill of the employees in Leixlip. Well done. Later this month, 10,000 entrepreneurs from all over the world will gather in Dublin at the Dublin Digital Summit, which is a melting pot of new and creative ideas as young people work to create the future. Big Irish brands like the Kerry Group and Glanbia and Paddy Power are expanding in food production and e-commerce all over the world. We also know that our small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy. They keep jobs and life in every community. So, cutting VAT in sectors like hospitality and tourism has made a massive difference to them and to their ability to sustain and create new jobs and employment all over this country. For those small businesses, credit is crucial, and this government has got them a better deal, forcing the banks to give more credit. And at government end, setting up new systems like the Partial Loan Credit Guarantee Scheme. and I might say strongly defending our 12.5% corporation tax rate, which is a key element and will continue to be a key element of our job strategy for the future. So getting a better deal on the bailout was urgent to the government, undoing some of the worst aspects agreed by our predecessors. And for the sake of our families and businesses, they had to be reversed. And I am glad to say that they were. We helped the lowest paid by reversing the cut to the minimum wage. We helped all workers, by reversing the Fianna Fáil plan to increase income tax by €500 million over 2 years, a plan which would have had a disastrous impact on jobs all over this country. And as you know, they also left us with the promissory note arrangement by which you were expected to borrow €3.1 billion every March for 10 years to pay back the debts of Anglo-Irish Bank. And despite those who said we would never manage to renegotiate that, that's actually what we did, and Minister Noonan and his team did a first-class job in those negotiations. See, as a consequence, the promissory note is gone, Anglo-IBRC is gone, and the result of that is that Ireland's borrowing requirements will be €20 billion less over the next 10 years. And we'll also save an extra €9 billion through the lower interest rates and the longer maturities on the bailout loans that we have also negotiated and successfully agreed. So, every step that we took, every wrong that we have managed to right so far, brings us closer to exiting the bailout. Apart from that bailout, there were the banks. For the government and the people, the news was always dismal. The banking fixation, with the bottom line and the bonus, mutilated our economy and almost annihilated our country. So we took action. We downsized the banks, created two-pillar banks. We ended the infamous bank guarantee, and to recoup some of the taxpayers' money which had been pumped into those banks, we sold Irish Life and some of the government's stake in the Bank of Ireland. And I am happy to report to you here in Limerick that the banks are now back in the markets. Deposits are returning. They're less dependent upon the European Central Bank. But for many of our families, people trying to keep a roof over their heads, the biggest banking issue remains mortgage distress. So for you watching in your homes, we have overhauled the bankruptcy laws. We have created the Personal Insolvency Agency to rebalance the rights of borrower and lender. We've made it very clear to the banks, which they have accepted, that by the end of next year, they must have reached sustainable arrangements with the vast majority of mortgage holders in distress, because that distress is not just financial, it's emotional, it's psychological, it's physical, and it's spread to every part of the country. And it must be relieved if people are to get on with their lives and if our country is to be properly healed. But the banks were not the only focus of necessary reform. Reform is essential throughout our public services too, if we are to have a strong and a lasting recovery. The Haddington Road Agreement, negotiated by Brendan Howlin, will bring better, more efficient public services, the kind that will do more and cost less. It's an agreement that must and will be implemented in full to protect the services that our people depend on. And politics, of course, is also changing. corporate donations have been effectively banned. Dáil sitting days have increased by a third. We brought in gender quotas to get more women into politics, and parties that don't comply will be fined. Last week, as you know, the Irish people made their decision in 2 referendums. I fully accept and respect those decisions. We will now move to establish the Court of Appeal as soon as possible, and in putting the future of the Seanad to the people, we honoured a clear commitment to do so. The outcome is clear, and we will now continue to reform the political system and to ensure that the Seanad plays an effective part as possible within its constitutional constraints. I intend to discuss this with the leaders of the Seanad and the leaders in the Dáil in the next couple of weeks. As a first small step, I've asked that legislation be prepared for consideration, which will give effect to the 1979 decision of the Irish people to extend the Seanad electorate to all graduates. But, just as Ireland faced a crisis in the economy, it also faced a crisis of insight and compassion. When becoming Taoiseach, I was determined to face up to issues that had been ignored for years and for far too long. Having met face to face with the survivors of the Magdalen laundries, I was determined that they would get proper recognition, proper respect, and proper support. And that resulted in a full state apology, a fair and a non-adversarial redress scheme, and other state supports to help these women in the twilight years of their lives. Equally, we set about protecting children by having a constitution that recognises them as citizens in their own right for the first time, and plans to put the Children First programme on a statutory footing. And we also looked after their mothers. The Protection of Life in Pregnancy Bill, which brought clarity to the professionals and comfort to expectant mothers. Previous governments failed to deal with this, but as Taoiseach, I was convinced of the need to provide that clarity. I believe that we achieved a delicate balance that protected the life of the mother and her baby. I believe we've done the right thing for all the women of Ireland. Let me say, if there are 2 words for me that sum up all that was tragic about the so-called Tiger years, those words are Priory Hall. Families at breaking point because of bad development, bad building, bad regulation, bad banks. I admire the dignity and the integrity of those families. So I'm pleased to say Minister Hogan and the government have given the Priory Hall families another chance at a better life. And that's exactly what we're trying to do for Ireland. Yes, I know it's been tough. And on Tuesday, the budget will be tough. But it has 2 key objectives, both of them in your interest. Firstly, to reach our agreed targets so that we can exit the bailout programme. Secondly, to allow us to invest as much as we can in creating those jobs for our people. The budget correction, as you know, will be 2.5 billion, which will leave us with a 4.8% deficit next year. That's well ahead of the required 5.1% target. 2 years ago, you will remember, when I addressed the Irish people, I said I wanted to be the Taoiseach who would retrieve our economic sovereignty and our economic independence. The decisions that we have taken many of them tough decisions, government and people working in partnership, mean that this goal is now within our grasp. And so this evening, let me confirm to you that Ireland is on track to exit the EU IMF bailout on December 15th, 2013. It won't mean our financial troubles are over. Yes, there are still fragile times ahead. There is still a long way to go. But at last, the era of the bailout will be no more. The economic emergency will be over. But the exit from the bailout is not an end in itself. In fact, it's just a beginning. But it's the beginning of our freedom to choose the kind of Ireland we want to build for our people for the future. And to plan for that new era, we will publish a new medium-term economic strategy before the end of this year. We will use our economic freedom to return Ireland to full employment and to plan for better living standards right across the country. We will protect and enhance our competitiveness. We will keep taxes on jobs and work and investment as low as possible. We will continue to reform our public sector, keeping our frontline services while cutting out costs and waste. We will find new ways to finance investment in transport and schools and healthcare and communications. And we will continue to invest in education, which is the key to our children's futures. We will overhaul our welfare system to make sure that people have both the support and the incentive to get back to work. And above all, we will change the economic model from one based on speculation to one based on enterprise. We will swap greed and exclusion and speculation for ideas and inclusion and innovation. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we refuse to go back to the policies that brought this country to the edge of bankruptcy. Those days are over for good. And so to the future, where we all have to live. I've never been as confident that Ireland will beat the economic challenges that we face. I've never been as proud when I see the response from our people to all these challenges. You see, the power of community leadership, the extent of voluntary commitment, the embrace of family solidarity evident all over this country, reinforces my view of the real strength of the Irish people. These are the attributes that have distinguished us as a people for generations. These are the qualities that make us stand apart, the qualities that have survived and flourished and strengthened throughout this recession. These are the traits that lead to ideas, to creativity, and to success. I want all our people, men and women, young and experienced, at home and abroad, to assist in our national effort to build that new future. I know we can do this. I know we can succeed. I know we will succeed. Your spirit, your commitment, your belief, and your values are crucial to this effort. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us great. That's why we will win. Iaragh, thank you very much indeed.